noticed that the audio inside of the room was much lower and different for the President of the United States than the previous speaker. So when you put all of this together, it doesn't look like a coincidence to me. And I know that we have people, including the United States Secret Service, who are looking into this to try to get to the bottom of it.
All right, folks, what I'm about to show you is absurdly ridiculous, even by Karoline Leavitt standards. But late last night, Karoline Leavitt went on Fox News to try to desperately spin Donald Trump's disastrous speech before the United States General Assembly, which we covered extensively in videos yesterday. During the course of the interview, she told a bunch of lies and tried to reframe Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin and his posture on the war with Ukraine. And she also tried to accelerate the most absurd non-scandal into a full-fledged national security crisis that you've ever seen. I mean, it is really embarrassing and ham-fisted. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. If MAGA is good at anything, they are really, really good at making non-issues issues, not on substance, but on spectacle, right? I think occasionally they like to test their abilities. Is this ridiculous? Can I make this nothing burger into a giant double, triple patty monster burger? We'll see what happens here. Before I play you the clip of Leavitt, I've got to give you some context. So I've got to play this clip of Jimmy Kimmel first because he sets it up.
You know, as of this taping, the president has not weighed in on ABC's decision to put us back on the air. I don't know, maybe he's saving it for his late night toilet time, but his magnificence had other business today in New York, big business, addressing the United Nations, which got off to a rocky start when the Trumps hit the escalator and it suddenly stopped. They had to walk up. He broke the escalator.
It's about the escalator, okay? The escalator stopped. He had to walk up. He was kind of confused. Okay, I'll walk up. So let's look into what happened afterwards, courtesy of Karoline Leavitt, because apparently this is a national security issue which merits investigations and terminations.
All right, Karoline, it does appear to be sabotage with the escalator and the teleprompter. What is the White House going to do about that?
Well, Jesse, that's definitely what it appears to be to me, and that's why I put out a statement earlier. There was some concerning reporting over the weekend from the London Times, as you pointed out, that UN globalist staffers were basically plotting to set up the President of the United States. And first it was the escalator, then it was the teleprompter, and then Katie Pavlich from Town Hall, who we offered a seat in the press pool to cover the President's historic speech today, noticed that the audio inside of the room was much lower and different for the President of the United States than the previous speaker. So when you put all of this together, it doesn't look like a coincidence to me. And I know that we have people, including the United States Secret Service, who are looking into this to try to get to the bottom of it. And if we find that these were UN staffers who were purposefully trying to trip up, literally trip up, the President and the First Lady of the United States, well, there better be accountability for those people. And I will personally see to it, Jesse.
Good.
So, just to be clear, there was an issue with the teleprompter. The escalator stopped working. We'll get to that in a second. And apparently, there's a difference in audio. And this merits a full-fledged Secret Service negotiation. We're going to talk. Fox is running for this, or running with this, and other Republicans are. We're going to cover that in a separate video. I really want to focus on Leavitt in this interview. But they're running with this. And ABC is reporting on this. Trump White House wants investigation into stopped elevator at UN. Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt called for firings if foul play took place. And then it was reported by the UN that there was no foul play. And apparently it was a Trump supporter or a Trump staffer that accidentally hit the thing there. The United Nations issued a statement on the incident saying that the escalator stop might have been triggered by a safety feature as a videographer was standing backward on the escalator ahead of the president. And then they also came out, I'll pull up the article here real quick as well, saying that it was a Trump staffer. It was a Trump staffer that is responsible. UN says Trump's team to blame for non-working escalator and teleprompter. Trump used an inoperable escalator and a defective teleprompter at the United Nations. Stephanie Dujarric, a UN spokesman, said the videographer from the U.S. delegation who ran ahead of him triggered the stop mechanism at the top of the escalator. Quote, the safety mechanism is designed to prevent people or objects from accidentally being caught or stuck in or pulled into the gearing. The videographer may have inadvertently triggered the safety function. The UN official speaking on the condition of anonymity because of the sensitivity of the issue contributed that one to his side as well, saying the White House is operating the teleprompter for the president. Regardless of the cause, it's not unusual for escalators at the UN to stop working, as staff and visitors know quite well. Okay, but again, this is the latest crusade. Again, we'll discuss how far it's going in separate videos. Let's go back to this interview with Karoline Leavitt on Fox News, again, trying to spin Trump's disastrous speech, which was disastrous in substance, not simply because of technical issues at the UN.
But the president has said if Vladimir Putin wants to keep fighting, well, the president knows how to fight. But ultimately, always, Jesse, the president has wanted peace. He's wanted this war to come to an end, and he's made that very clear since he came into office in January.
So, of course, Trump is apparently doing a 180 in his public posture. He stunned Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, yesterday by saying that NATO should shoot down Russian aircraft if they cross NATO airspace, which is a posture held by most people who take NATO seriously. But Zelensky was stunned because he's like, well, Trump doesn't say stuff like this. He's so deferential to Russia. So now Karoline Leavitt's like, yeah, that's nothing new. I mean, Trump's always said, hey, listen, I'm going to kick your ass if I want to. I'll kick your ass, Putin. But also, I really want peace. And also, I'll get this resolved in 24 hours. And none of that's happened. Apparently, the reporting is that Trump is starting to recognize that he has been humiliated time and time and time and time again by the vastly intellectually superior Vladimir Putin, and it's stinging his pride, and so he's starting to do a 180 to try to pressure Putin. We'll see what happens. Here's another clip.
Today in New York City.
And he called Putin a paper tiger. Was there anything that kind of helped him shift that position? Because that is a big change in posture.
Well, look, President Trump has been very clear that he's been increasingly frustrated with both sides of this war for a very long time. But most recently, he's been incredibly frustrated with President Putin and Russia, who continue to talk nice. But then we wake up every morning and in the West Wing, we're receiving reports about how Russia bombed Ukraine and they continue to kill innocent civilians. And the president is making it very clear that Russia is in a very weak position. And he's absolutely right. They are a massive country with a massive military. They are a war economy. But it's been 3.5 years. And look at how Ukraine has been able to defend itself. And so the president has said that we.
What I find so funny about this is because it is a different posture. And Leavitt and Trump were saying the exact opposite weeks and months ago, talking about, hey, Russia's about to kick Ukraine's shit in. Ukraine is doing terribly. It's been a disaster for Ukraine, and now they're trying to spin it. Actually, Ukraine's done extremely well, and I would argue defensively they have. I mean, again, this show tends to stick to domestic politics as opposed to foreign politics, but the fact that on paper Russia has such a vastly superior and larger military force, and they have not succeeded in their initiatives, I mean, it's clearly not gone particularly well, and the casualty rate is higher for Russians than it is for Ukrainians, at least with respect to the military. But I just love how it was just like nonstop shit talking Ukraine and the Ukrainian defensive war effort. And now they're flipping the opposite. Like, oh, bro, they're a paper tiger. They suck. Ukraine's been beating their ass. It is. Even Jesse Waters like, guys, come on. You all have been saying the exact opposite here. And it's also a tacit endorsement of the Biden administration, without whose support Ukraine would not have fared as well as they have. Of course, Trump nor Karoline Leavitt will ever phrase it that way. Here's another clip.
He talked about how all of these countries need to have pride in themselves like we do here in the United States of America. They should be proud of their own heritage and culture. And Japan is beautiful, and Italy is beautiful, and the UK is beautiful because they all have their own unique history and culture and heritage, and they need to protect that just like we are doing here in the United States of America. And how do you protect yourself? How do you make sure that you are a sovereign state, not just
don't let brown people in is probably what she wants to say. Stephen Miller in his, dark robes, they call him Voldemort. Gavin Newsom's press office probably like, just say it. Just say it. Tell the world, don't let brown people in. Tell the world that's how you preserve everything. So just read between the lines here.
Being a decaying nation state because of the globalist world order, you have strong borders and a robust domestic energy production and law and order within your own country. Those
Again, just his speech, as we discussed yesterday, was just rife with xenophobic and nationalist overtones. Again, it's almost like Stephen Miller was personally writing it out himself. One last clip from Karoline Leavitt, again, trying to spin just how utterly devoted and rapturous the United Nations is to Donald Trump.
The president was blunt, very blunt today. It was definitely useful because these people have to get their act together. Do you think the UN heard the president loud and clear?
Absolutely. In fact, the room was absolutely packed to the walls. Every single leader showed up for President Trump's speech today, and they heard him loud and clear. And I am proud to work for President Trump every day, Jesse, but I was especially proud watching the President of the United States of America bring common sense to an organization that has made no sense for far too long. And the President gave some tough love. He said, "You are all destroying your own countries, and the United States of America was just being destroyed by one of your own." He took one of your own, a globalist in Joe Biden, who had no idea what he was doing. The president took a sledgehammer to the failing globalist world order. He talked about how all of these countries need to have pride in themselves, like we do here in the United States of America. They should be proud of their own heritage and culture.
And again, it just goes right back to the weird sort of like vaguely white nationalist, xenophobic talking points. It's all about being prideful in your culture. What does that mean? And what does U.S. culture mean? And what does immigration have to do with it? To what extent are you saying that immigration threatens the American culture? Because again, as I've said before, American culture is, to the extent that we have one, there's very little that unites us these days. I mean, you have liberals in California versus conservatives in rural West Virginia. What unites us, really? I mean, it seems like we're becoming increasingly disunified, thanks in large part to Donald Trump. And yet we're still a nation. The rural conservative in West Virginia is just as American as the liberal in, San Francisco, right? This idea that immigration somehow changes the calculus unnecessarily or egregiously, this doesn't seem to be the case. Certainly not here in the United States, where you can have native-born Americans just by virtue of geography and aspiration, ideals, and values having almost diametrically opposed worldviews. It seems that we're more divided now than ever. And shit like this and Donald Trump's rhetoric and Karoline Leavitt's rhetoric is only making it worse. But there you have it. Desperate spin by Karoline Leavitt for a disastrous speech and trying to make a national security issue out of an out of an escalator that it turns out they themselves stopped by accident. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.